So I kind of walk a tightrope of enjoying my life and being productive. But the things and the industries that I'm involved in, I love electronics, I love business, actually I get enjoyment out of. So I think for anybody wanting to own their own business or wanting to become an entrepreneur, I don't bake and I don't find baking enjoying. I'm not going to go out and try to bake cakes for a living or as an entrepreneur because that's not what I enjoy.
Yeah. So, that's something that I have started to find really negative about hustle culture because if you spend too much time with your YouTube algorithm kind of in that Gary V world. The hustle
porn, fuck Gary
Well,
V,
I saw this this one kid, he's probably 19 or so, and he's clearly just making a fuck ton of money off of Shopify and setting up online stores. And it sounded like a less inspired version of what you're doing where you're creating businesses that you want to eventually run themselves, but they're based on your specific interests. This guy was making a whole video about how he was going to make custom pet dog socks where people can send in photos of their dogs and then get a really, really cheap, shitty sock of it back, and he was showing himself go to all these extreme lengths to create websites and mobile ads and do product research and find the cheapest thing available so he could eventually make tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars through these passive businesses. But I was thinking in terms of the value he's adding to society and the amount of personal enjoyment he's giving himself other than the fact that he's just making money, it seemed just really
empty,
bleak. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of that hustle porn industry, you have guys like Gary Vee, you have guys... I don't really like watching some of that motivational stuff. If it inspires you, dude, I'm not going to be here and tell you that's shit, but if it inspires you, it inspires you. But for me... personally, music inspires me. So throughout the day, I just listen to my favorite music, and that kind of drives me. I either always am listening to music in my car. When I get out of my car to do the day-to-day of my business, I have my headphones in. And I think that's what makes it sustainable is because I'm doing little things like that. A big thing that helped my productivity is I stopped smoking weed during the day. And I stopped smoking weed outside of either to go to sleep or for big occasions. If I'm with some people and they're smoking, I'll smoke some. But I just think when you smoke during the day, you're just fighting that inertia. Marijuana, the compound, especially indica, slows you down. So if you're in an area or in your life where you feel like you're not going anywhere, smoking weed during the day is only going to perpetuate. You're only going to be fighting an uphill battle. And I at least realize this for myself. If I smoke during the day, I'm fighting this uphill battle of my sharpness, my focus, the ability for me to make critical decisions quickly. Mm-hmm. And I just decided it wasn't worth it because I would smoke, man, about an ounce a week. And during the day, 5-10 times a day, man, really...
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I had an issue with smoking every day and through the day for the last, I would say almost 3 years. And, I got to a point a while ago where the majority of the times I was having panic attacks and not enjoying it. But then every single time I would tell myself, this is different this time. And it never was. So I did sober October the last 2 years, and both times it was really helpful to me. And then now I've been sober the entire year, so I'm almost at 2 months now, which is really good. And I found the first time I was sober for a whole month, what I found is my general anxiety and just kind of inner chatter was greatly diminished. And I think the level of capability I felt that I had was way up. I felt more like I could accomplish the goals I was setting out for myself with my videos. And also, you start to get your dreams back a lot more.
You get your dreams back. You feel inspired. I dream throughout the day. I'm Christian, man, and I don't really identify with the hyper spiritual movement, and that's just my own beliefs, man. Believe whatever you want. You like astrology, you like all that stuff. I won't really go deep into that, but for me personally, God kind of sustains where I can't, and that's that's just me. So I can only speak to that. I do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I don't have the motivation. A lot of people think I'm a workaholic. A lot of people think that I don't make enough time for fun things and that I'm working all the time. But I get that energy and I get that. I do my work as unto the Lord, as the scripture says. And I'm not perfect. Like, I smoke, I drink, like, you know, I don't always make the best decisions, but I'm growing myself. But
yeah, I think as long as, you know, people are self-aware and they take some time to kind of reflect on their actions, and if it's like serving them, and, you know, if they want to change things, you know, all people can do is their best.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's all that God asks from you is your best. And I think a lot of times the way that people get away from connecting to a higher power is because they're ashamed of what they do. And, you know, shame is the devil's biggest tool to drive you away from your purpose, because shame is oppressive. You know, shame like, okay, I stuttered in this conversation today, or I said something I shouldn't have, and then it creates this whole snowball effect of thinking where you're just like down on yourself, and then your energy for the day gets affected. Yeah. And so, man, I run from negative thoughts, man. I don't entertain them. People who are negative, like, I isolate myself away from them. And if I believe a lot in frequencies. I believe that you operate, like, just knowing you operate or vibrating at a high frequency. It's kind of corny.
No, I honestly agree with that, because I think that, like, you know, everything in the world is, like, quite literally energy, and it's, like, you know, flowing through us from the food we eat to the thoughts we have, and, you know, we certainly impact each other just by being around each other. And I think it's really meaningful to have, you know, inspiring, positive people around you.
Yeah. And people who don't drain your energy or your sauce, people that just take and take and take. I've separated myself from those people, and those people ask me, like, why don't you hang out with me anymore? And a lot of the times I'm honest with them, because I don't think I still care about these people, and I want them to be better in their lives. Or if they have bad habits that have rubbed off on me that I can't surround myself with, I tell them, like, bro, I can't be around that, because I'm trying to go to the next level in my whole life. Like, I can't have dead weight. I can't have people who are influencing me in the wrong ways with things that habits that I'm trying to get rid of. It's just not conducive to my plan.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the more difficult things about being an adult, and just kind of realizing that it all comes down to you giving yourself what you need, and, you know, just being your own parent. You know, I deal with a lot of negative thoughts too. I kind of overthink a lot. I'm, like, mad at myself almost all the time. So when I was smoking, it was giving me panic attacks. It usually was in the form of me thinking about every conversation, every tweet I've had in the last week, and just finding reasons as to why I'm, like, an idiot. And, like, you know, something one of my therapists said was how, like, when you're having a negative thought, it's good to just kind of, instead of letting it run away, like, look at it for a sec and kind of question it and find counter arguments, so that, because she was we were talking about how, like, your brain has neurotransmitters and you kind of form habits. Yeah. And if you have the habit of if you have the pathway of having a negative thought, it impacts you, and then that's the whole situation, then you kind of need to form the counter habit of disproving them in your head, so then that way they, you know, don't bother you and they don't last. And but it sounds like you're, you know, just describing, like, just trying to prevent them from happening in the first place.
I wish I could kind of take my mental pathways out, because I see people struggling with this, and I've struggled with it for a long time. But I don't know if it's just the way my brain's set up. Like, I have, like, even, like, I'm a shooter, man. Like, I'm not gonna say I womanize, but, like, you know what I mean? I'm not afraid to shoot my shot with somebody, and a lot of people are. So it's like, I'll shoot out of my league and I get shot down, and it's just like, hey, happens, man. Charge it to the game. And so a lot of people have told me they appreciate my confidence in that aspect, but it's the same kind of mentality as just, like, not letting those. The Bible calls it take every thought captive. And so when I hear a thought in my head that I don't believe is my thought, I know it's negative energy. I know it's negativity. It's a spirit of negativity that's trying to infiltrate my day-to-day thought. I literally, like, grab that thing and, like, wrestle it and, like, choke it out and leave it behind, bro. Because if you can train your brain to do that, you won't spend a lot of the times reminiscing on the things you should have said, the things you should have did. You operate where you operate in the present and the future as opposed to looking back in the past. And I think looking back in the past is important to learn lessons from it. But if you've learned that lesson, you've already established what you could have done differently. Freaking throw that thing. It's called, in football, I forget what they called it for cornerbacks. Short memory or something like that, where basically if a cornerback is getting burned by this receiver, he has to immediately take that out of his brain and not let him affect it, because he's got to line up against this guy either for the next play or for the next 100 plays if it's the rest of the game. And if you let that get in you, and even with as a defensive lineman, like when I pancake someone and get a sack, you can look at my huddle, my highlight films, Cruz Flores, number 54, Chandler football. But when I would get a pancake, I wouldn't even let the positive things reminisce on, because you get a good sack, you get the quarterback, next play, you let a running back go through your gap and he scores on you. And all that dopamine that you got from that last thing is immediately reversed by the negative stress of losing a play. And so sports did everything for me. Will I let my kids play football? No, man. I'm like a walking Frankenstein. I've had 2 knee surgeries, back injections, degenerative disc disease. Like it's a miracle I'm walking. My primary care doctor, whenever he sees my MRI, is just like, I have the back of a 60-year-old at age 24. And I got to live with that, which is like, I got to lose some weight, but I don't even let myself get caught up in those things, like the things I need to do. I take my day and I break it down from a top-down perspective, in the sense where I establish the things I need to get done this day. I don't beat myself. I establish priorities like, okay, this thing's priority 1. These 3 things are priority 1. I have to get these done, like studying for a test or going to class. And then I have priority 2 things I need to get done that are on maybe less of a time crunch. And then I have priority 3 things, like if I get priority 1 and priority 2 done, I don't feel bad that doing these priority 3 things. And a lot of those things are my creative outlets. I don't have as much time to make music as I used to. But when you take that approach and you write things down and you physically check the box of getting things done, it's a dopamine hit.